Welcome back to Indie Cult Horror. I hope you've been enjoying the interviews so far. Today's going to be another one that's a little bit of a sad note for me. Um, Today we're going to be looking at my interview with David Hess. David Hess is most well known for his role as Krug in Last House on the Left by Wes Craven. If you've looked at my blog, uh, you probably know that I have a hard time with this film. It's not a film that I put on for fun. Like many of the horror films that we've discussed and some of the people that we've seen these interviews with, these are movies that I'll watch over and over and over again for enjoyment. Last House is a harsh movie, and it's a very hard film. I believe perhaps this is maybe more for women than for men, but it's a hard film because it is such an effective film. The film does feature fairly brutal rape and torture scenes. This is the early 70s, so we're not talking about something like Saw or even Hostel, but it's still more so, I would say, than those films. You feel the pain of these characters far more than you do in modern kind of torture porn films. You get to know the characters in Last House before you see them brutally tortured by the gang. And Krug is a vicious character. There's nothing likable about this man. So when it came time when I was collecting my interviews, and I saw David Hess on the list, I said, well, he's an important person, it's an important film, but it's not a film that I love talking about. So it was a fun interview in a way because I let him know. I mean, I'm like, this is not a movie that I love because, you're pretty damn awful in this film, and the things that happen in it are awful. And he kind of took that to heart and had a little fun with me. I remember the first time I met David Hess a few years before this. He made a point to find there's like a cut scene from the film where you see Krug dead lying on the floor, and he said, well, this is the autograph for you then, because you want to make sure that that I'm gone, I'm dead. So he wrote something very funny on my autograph then. So he's always had a good sense of humor about these things, and he knows it's a harsh film, but hearing him talk about it is very interesting because well, you'll see, they don't really look at it as plainly depicting rape. It's a film that looks at society. And it's very true. The filmmakers were so harsh and so graphic and pushed the edge so far on what was allowed violence that, the film became notorious because of it. And it was to show, what violence in society had gotten to and what was acceptable to be seen on television. So in the time of war, Vietnam was everywhere. And it was a way for them to express how they felt about being kind of invaded by this imagery. So they invaded back. And David Hess does a wonderful job. Genre fans also know him for having a part in Wes Craven's later film Swamp Thing, as well as Ruggero Deodato's House at the Edge of the Park, which is a very similar kind of violent film that looks at home invasion. Still very early in these types of ways, these depictions. And it's also interesting to know that Hess, because of these films, also had a very successful career making films in Italy and Europe. He also did a lot of television work. He's also a musician, and he was a writer. So he wrote the music that you hear in Last House, and him and his son would go on to do scores for other films later in life. So this interview was the same chiller that I met Gunnar at for the interview I did with him that you saw. So this interview was the same weekend, so this is 2003. I got to see David Hess, I believe, 2 more times. Both times, always checking up on me, how are things going. I gave him a copy of my thesis for my master's. He was going out of his way, is there anything I can do to help? He was just a great guy. And unfortunately, we lost him in 2011. He passed away at 75, I believe. So it's a little bittersweet, this interview for me. Unfortunately, so many of these interviews are that way. But again, this is why I want to make sure that you guys get to see these, because these are maybe moments in actors and filmmakers that we all love, something that we don't have, something that you may not have seen before. And those are things we cherish, right? As fans, we look for that one thing we have not seen before. So hopefully, if you are a David Hess fan, you will appreciate this interview. It's a quick interview. We had to do it at his table. So I hope you enjoy this interview with David Hess.
Hi, I'm David Hess, star of stage, screen, and radio, and many other things. A lot of which I don't want to talk about.
Let's hope I don't hit any of those then.
No.
All right, let's start with the most obvious. Last House on the Left.
What should we? Where do you want to begin? There's so much has been said, and so much to say.
Did it hurt or hinder your career? I mean, in any way?
No, I didn't even think about it. It was the beginning. It was probably one of the purest moments in my life. Just in the sense I didn't know what I was doing, and nobody else did. So it was kind of interesting.
Was there ever any worry on the set that you guys were maybe going a little too far, or a little too intense?
No. It was we were all peaceniks. We're coming out of the '60s. The peace movement, and it just felt like the right thing to do at the time. Wes was definitely an anti-war, anti what was going on at the time kind of film. Going over the top was a planned thing. Snapping the synapses is what we used to say.
The score. Did you do the music yourself on that?
All of it. Steve Chapin had a lot to do with it because he helped me with the arrangements. Chapin band at the time, was kind of really hot. And, I think it was, as I recall, it was a little bit after Harry's death. So.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You were fantastic. Thank you.
Did you feel typecast as Krug afterwards, though?
Labor Day. Okay.
I think you typecast more for the way you look than for the characters that you play. And I look like a heavy, I guess. I'm not really, but that's my MO. So yeah, I got cast in a lot of heavies, and I tried to always stretch the envelope a little bit, let's say. And that's really what typecast me more than anything, because then my MO changed. Well, this guy's an actor. I mean, he can just really, do a heavy, so to speak. Somebody with some real passion and who's alive, and so yeah, in that respect, probably.
Yep.
So after Last House, going to Italy, working with Diodato on House, was that a similar experience because the subject matter of the film, or?
It was an Italian giallo, and they're always using previously filmed subjects, kind of, and then they're taking them and revamping them and rehashing them. And so, yeah, it was. But I did the trilogy, the Last House, House on the Edge of the Park, and then finally Hitchhike with Pasquale Festa Campanile. They were all kind of a development on the same character. I didn't think that I really had finished developing the character through after Last House. That was just the beginning of it,
Sure, absolutely.
Now, looking back on those three films, actually, is there anything about it now that you think maybe, like at the time, you guys, had definitely, but from the way that it was received and the violence in it and the overall kind of, a lot of people seem to be very against Last House specifically, and all three of them are very intense films.
As many as they're against it, that's how many they're for, and you're always going to get a diverse amount of opinion, I think. No matter what you do. I mean, you can, if you work in an office, people are going to not, they're not going to want to go the direction you're going. So, no, I'm thankful that they were done. I'm thankful that they're out there. They kind of stand as a, as a road mark. In terms of directions that we don't want to go in real life. And if they're not there, if you don't get that kind of it's early in the morning, but Jesus, I lost the word. If you don't have those kind of films, or anything, stories, films, or anything, they can point the way. And it's kind of just treading water, You're not really moving in any direction. And this is just kind of an indication of things that we shouldn't be doing.
Kind of like a Clockwork Orange kind of effect.
Yeah.
think you got a customer here, so if you want.
Can you wait for a couple seconds? Sure. Great. I'm just 2 seconds.
One question I had about Last House. The way the film plays out, there's a definite juxtaposition between the kind of harshness of Krug and his gang and the experience with the family, and then this kind of like Keystone Cops kind of humor with the local cops trying to deal with it. How did that feel when you sat down and watched it? Do you think that worked for you?
Yeah, well, it works on different levels, you know. I mean, why put Keystone Cops in a film? Well, what does that mean? Are the cops bumbling? Are they idiots? Do they always get there? You know, are they always $1 short and a day late? You know, well, yeah, in a lot of ways it's true. You know, I mean, our law enforcement can't be every place at all times. So I think the metaphor behind that is, hey, somehow we have to learn how to reinforce ourselves to a certain point. And then, you know, the law enforcement itself comes in at the 11th hour if it's necessary. So that was the metaphor for that. It's also comic relief. I mean, you're dealing with a very heavy subject at a time that hadn't been covered. I mean, the only person that covered it before was Bergman, and he covered it from a European sensibility. So that that's not to say that what he did was wrong. I mean, I think it's wonderful, but it's just a European sensibility, and we did it from an American sensibility. You know, being the superpower that we are. So in answer to your question, yeah, it didn't bother me. It just didn't bother me.
It's kind of like you needed a break from all the tension.
I really, I think, and I know it was not intentional.
Labor Day.
One more question. I just wanted to know, when you worked on Swamp Thing with Wes Craven, was there a definite difference at that time, like working with, did you see or feel a difference in the way that he worked with people from working on his first film?
No, Wes has always been kind of a pure person in his relationships with people. I mean, I may not agree with the way he directs, or his vision sometimes, or the direction he wants to take his own life in, but that's none of my business. Swamp Thing was just a bigger budget, you know, so they had more money to spend, and they could lavish more treatment on people, or on the film. That's what the film industry's about. I mean, if you join Hollywood, then you can make a lot of money, but what price glory?
Actually, I did want to kind of sneak one more thing. I was just wondering, because I looked at your filmography again this morning, and I was realizing there's a lot of television work. How different is it working on television than working in film?
Hit the mark, say the line, do a hinge, and exit. That's what Lee Marvin told me when I worked with him. So that's what I got to do. That's all you got to remember for television, kid. Hit the mark, say the line, do a hinge, and exit. So that's television.
I want to hold up your lines today.
They'll wait.
Okay. What was it working with Italian directors? Was there a big language
pretty much
barrier?
let you on your own. I pretty much directed myself, and then when it was necessary, directed other people too. They kind of allow that. So not with Pasquale specifically, but because Franco and Corinne were very, very accomplished actors in themselves. But yeah, there's a lot of disparity in the professionalism. So you kind of take over your own little space and help other spaces take over. They take over other spaces if you have to.
I'd heard that some of the Italian directors, they like to let people work in their own language, and that lead to?
They do everything, and they don't do it in sync sound for that reason, because the Italians don't like they don't like the underscoring, undertitles, subtitles. They throw it out of the film theater if they see subtitled films. So in that respect, they don't care about whether they do direct sound or not.
So now, what types of things are you working on now? And
I just finished a film with Uli Lommel called Zodiac Killer. That'll be out sometime in June or July, and then I've got a couple of other films that I'm scoring a film. I'm doing a small role in a film called The Space Between Bill Buckner's Legs, which is tonic films, and then I got another film at the end of the year, and Quentin Tarantino and I are talking about doing something together, and so on and so on.
So these kind of taken off again, you know?
Yeah, the career's starting to move a little bit, but I never felt that it was, downhill or anything, uphill, downhill, sideways. It didn't really much matter to me.
And your
I
music
spent a lot of time raising a family. I got a lot of kids, I mean, my focus has been essentially on my family, my marriage.
and your music career? So you got a CD?
That kind of is it. That flourishes when I want it to. I'm not a person that likes to go on the road. I don't mind going on the road, but it's like I don't like to do the the 6-month tour and things like that of the world. 3-4 weeks at a time is fine. I love the I love the whole mechanics of getting in the studio and creating a record, and if I take it on the road or not, it really doesn't matter much to me. People listen to it. I mean, I do it for myself, and I'm lucky enough to have people listen to it and like my song. So, but essentially, that's what I do for myself.
How does this feel? This kind of experience, meeting fans and
A chiller?
yeah.
I think it's very necessary. I mean, if I don't give back to them, what are they going to give to me? So, yeah, getting out and pressing the flesh is real important, and just saying hello to people. I am real. It's not just what's up there on the screen.
Do you get a lot of negative reactions from people? I know the first time I met you, it's kind of like, oh, you were such a bastard in the movie. It's kind of weird to know you're such a nice guy in person.
There's always a little bridge that you have to, kind of go over, but it's not a big deal. At least not for me.
Any dream projects you'd like to work on in the future?
I got a couple of things that I've written, trying to get off the ground. It's always difficult. I mean, people have in that respect, they really do have a perception of you. You really are pigeonholed, typecast. And, no, he can't direct. He's an actor. No, he doesn't write music. He's an actor. That kind of thing. But yeah, you may see. I'm sure I'm going to be directing soon. I mean, I've had enough offers so that there's something that I will take.
And is there any favorite types of characters that you play? Favorite types of roles that you like?
Yeah, sure.
Not really. In real life, people consider me to be a pretty funny guy. I mean, I just have a really good sense of humor. People laugh a lot at the things that I say. So I'd like to take that attitude, that side of me into the film. Yeah, I'd like to do some comedy, and I'm getting a chance to. It's not,
Bring all your friends.
I guess you have to get older to get a chance. You're not such a threat. Little do they know.
So in the future, you'll be directing and scoring a fun-loving comedy?
Hey, as long as the door's open, I'm going to put my foot in it.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time with another interview. Thanks again. Bye.